And good afternoon, Minister. Just a number of issues there. In relation to the summer provision, you've indicated that if a school in an area where there is a demand for the summer provision isn't actually providing that an organisation other than a school can do so. So I'm just wondering, are the supports being given to that organisation? Because it would be quite difficult for them, you know, if it's a charitable organisation or a parents group or whatever. And just, I suppose, a point that some parents made as well is that the summer provision may be offered in some areas, but it's not been offered for the full 4 weeks in many cases. I know you're aware of that, or reduced hours over the 4 weeks. So it's just that there is, unfortunately, not the full course being offered. In relation to the teacher training, I just welcome what you've said about that, and for new teachers coming out, as you point out, 98% of students with additional educational needs are in mainstream schools. But I know myself that when I was training, there wasn't a component around special education. I think it was voluntary or something like that. So I think the CPD is really important, and maybe that it's not voluntary, that it's actually compulsory that teachers who are teaching for a longer time, because some teachers will make every effort to have a very inclusive classroom and will differentiate the work, but there are others, a small number, who don't do that. So it's just to ensure that everybody is educated on all aspects of disability and autism. You referenced the Middletown Centre for Autism. It was established in 2007, and 16 years later is still a pilot programme in the south, which is a pity because it does absolutely brilliant work, and it only deals with 12 students here in the south, 60 in the north, so it's 5 times the amount, even though it's a much smaller geographical area. And I'm just wondering, could much more be done to ensure that that's actually reviewed and expanded, because I think they offer great supports. You also referenced there to be comprehensive supports to assist schools in completing the educational component of the HSE assessment. Could you expand on that? Because I know there was a nervousness among some schools, a lot of schools and unions, over what was involved there, and just to ensure that the supports are put in. On inclusive education, I welcome the fact that you've said that the NCSE's policy advice, that you will be publishing a department response to that very soon. I'm just wondering, will the social inclusion model be a big part of that? Is it time to maybe look at combining the social inclusion model with the CDNTs to reach out to as many pupils as possible? Because it's the same pool of staff that you're looking for, that they're all therapists, and there is a shortage, and I know there may be efforts to increase the number of available, but at the moment we don't seem to have enough. And where that's piloted, I believe that the demand for support from the CDNT reduces where the social inclusion model is working. So I think more integration and cooperation between disability and education is warranted there. And just in reference to CNOs, I'm glad you're saying that there's going to be an increase in the number of CNOs. And like, I worked with seniors who were excellent and who knew every student within their catchment area who had an additional need and would be in regular contact with families. Now I have parents coming to me and saying, who's the CNO? So the CNO has not reached out to them, is not doing their job. So I just welcome that a lot more needs to be done there.
Thank you very much, Deputy. And just on the last point, I do agree with you. We need a stronger representation of CNOs on the ground. I think they're the local connection to the parents, and I think their role is an invaluable one, and we've recognised that, and provision has been made in the budget to increase that. And if we have to do more, we will continue to do more in that space, because I do think you're right, and Senator Waller's referenced it. I think that link, when the link isn't there, it's all the more frustrating for parents, and I understand that. Just in terms of the summer provision, want to be clear that a body of work has been done. Significant supports are in place now for the running of these courses, if they're to be run by those who are, we say, not within the school setting. And Frank can come in afterwards to give further detail, but we are engaging. And this would be a new sphere now. This would be a new space for some of these organisations to take it up. So we are working. If we can even get a few of them on board this year, I think it will give confidence to grow it even more, next year. So we are working hard with a number of organisations maybe to get it off the ground this year. And Frank can come in maybe to give more detail on that. Just in terms of, you've referenced, the reduced hours or the 2 weeks or whatever. I'm conscious that some of the schools that are coming on board this year are coming on board for the first time. And so they're taking the 2 weeks almost as that's what they feel that they can manage this year, but the potential is there to grow it going forward. But equally so, we've made a huge effort around the special schools, and we have offered them particular flexibility. So, for example, flexibility around the weeks that they would choose, flexibility around the school day. And I understand, look, that it might not suit everybody, but I would rather a school run it for X number of hours than not run it at all. So it's been run between 10 and 2 are the hours at the minute. But I'm a great believer, if you do something once and garner experience, you have more confidence doing it the second time. And we're really in a space where we want to maximise the number of the special schools in particular that are doing it. We want them to see that it can be done, that they'll be well supported by the department. It's for that reason, as I've already referenced, the national coordinator, the programme manager within the school, the schools organiser. And there is, of course, additional grant funding to special schools as well. So, for example, if they run a 2-week programme, there's an additional, on top of what's been given, €4,000 being made available to the schools, So we're really pushing the boat out this year. I'm not saying that we have everything absolutely smack perfect this year, but we're learning from what has gone previously. We're acknowledging that there aren't enough numbers taking it up, so we're doing more and more and more. And we will learn again from how this has worked this year, if we need to do more going forward next year. Just in terms of, and you mentioned Middletown, and as you're aware, and I know you'd be well placed to know this, Deputy, that is a shared endeavour, North and South. We have the National Council for Special Education here. We rely upon them for the training here. That equivalency is not in the North. So much of our work is led out by the NCSE. Currently, you're correct, we have 12. We're next year in 2024, that will grow to 14. But there's also a new package coming on stream in 2024, excuse me, which Middletown will be launching, and it's a particular, I suppose, body of work around additional supports around the 3 areas, which is working with the schools, working with the teachers, working with the parents, and working with the young person. And there's an enhancement of that package of supports to be provided going forward from 2024, and we'll have more detail on that in the time. But that's been worked on by Middletown, and I just do want to recognise, I suppose, the excellent supports that are provided. But I think the wraparound service in 2024, there's great potential there going forward as well. Just in terms of the assessment of need, and I understand that there was a certain amount of trepidation there in view of the assessment of need, but I suppose we have to be clear that this is a legal obligation on us now since October 21st. But our role in education is to assist the HSE. We come in as an assistant. It's not a diagnostic-based assessment from our point of view in education. It's a needs-based assessment, and much of that work is already done within the schools in the portfolio of learning that they would have within the schools. And we want to be clear, before any of this was introduced, there was significant consultation with all of the partners. There were 80 schools involved in trialling it. It was trialled last summer, and it was trialled last October again. So a significant body of work in it, and we're also saying that for the ongoing work that's there, we will continue to support the schools. There are advisors available to the schools, and the entire process will be fully reviewed by the end of this year, so that where there needs to be learning or things done differently going forward, we will do that. So we gave that absolute commitment. And just to say as well, that 90% of the assessments are actually taking place at primary school rather than post-primary, but we will do the full review. And the school inclusion model, yeah, I want to be honest about that. It was interrupted as a consequence of COVID, but it's back up and running again in CH07. It is an ideal model where you have the therapist based in school. Do want to recognise that the role of the therapist doesn't fall within our gift. It is, I suppose, it is within the gift of, it is now moved to children, the Department of Children, but wherever it falls, the important thing is that it falls right for the schools. There's a huge body of work there, and we are engaging with particularly higher education institutes as well. We're trying to build up I suppose the provision of therapists of different disciplines coming into the schools. And I take your point about those that are based in community coming into the schools. So we're open to looking at any model that will increase and will maximise the number of therapists that work in our schools. They're a fundamental part of, I suppose, the provision for young people. We can control the education side of it. We are dependent on others in terms of the therapy side of it. But we're very happy, and we have engaged with the HSE, and we will have ongoing engagements. But there's also collaborative engagement now also in terms of increasing the number of therapists that, from a higher education point of view, that could be brought in stream as well. And I can't remember what was the last one. I should have said to you as well, and I forgot to mention, sorry, and Martina might come in as well, I meant to say to you about the summer programme in your own area, just so that you would know. In both Cavan and Monaghan, there are 29 schools in Cavan and there are 33 in Monaghan. And again, you know, we work to build up that. But Martina, did you want to
just in terms of that piece on the assessment of need, I suppose in the department we were really conscious that this was something that we were asking schools to do in cooperation with the NCSE. The Minister talked about the trialling that we did in June and then further trialling in October. But I suppose we learned a lot from working very collaboratively with schools during COVID as to the kind of resources and supports that they needed. So with the unions, the management bodies, the parents, we worked through what schools would need to be supported to go through this. So for example, we did a guidance document with step-by-step procedure as to how you complete the process. We did a short video because people felt the video was a very snappy way to be able to engage with it. There's a dedicated email within the NCSE that's monitored and responded. There's a dedicated phone line with people trained to answer the AON queries. We have an FAQ document that we update regularly on foot of the feedback from the schools. We have completed exemplars of where schools did it, how they did it, and we've that up again on our website. And then we have the in-person support visit. And I think the key piece on this is when we're asking schools to engage, and the Minister talked about engaging with what the information that's already in the school, on the student and in the student support plan, this is very much in line with what schools do already. It's part of the continuum of education process. It's part of the initial teacher training that teachers assess and understand the needs of the children in the class, and they modify the curriculum to meet those needs. And that's built upon at every stage, including the initial teacher training, the CPD. When we introduced the special education teacher in 2017, we produced significant training and guidance as to how you go about identifying need, because if you remember at that point we moved away from requiring a diagnosis to get resources. So in 2017 we trained and supported teachers to be able to accurately identify need within the classroom and to then apply their skills and competency to meet the need of that child. We've built upon that again in the new autism guidelines that we issued last year. So in effect in the AON, we're asking schools to take the information and the skills that they have, the information that's held on the student support file, transfer that to the NCSE, who are then quality assuring it, and they're sending it over to the HSE. And that commitment that we've given that the Minister referenced, we meet the stakeholders, I meet them regularly. We've committed to doing a review of this before the end of this school year, and we're absolutely going to do that with both the primary and post-primary stakeholders.
About the point that Deputy Tully is making around the what we call the private group provider scheme. So, you know, we knew not every special school would run a programme this year, although I'm delighted that we've had that increase. But we've opened it out to other groups now, maybe as you say, you know, voluntary groups or local charities, and that they can step in, and we'll support them in terms of what's required. It's actually it pretty much mirrors what's in the school-based system in terms of the setup, the teacher setup. And we've had a couple of inquiries, and we're working with a couple of different groups, so I know are going to do it in a couple of areas where the need is there, and we're continuing to do that with a couple of other groups as well. So I'd like to see this as the start of something possibly, because it's about having access to it for the children that need it the most, and that's what we were, and I know that's what this committee was about, and that's what we totally agree with that. So I think we're, you know, like the Minister said, we're seeing the start of something really positive this year, and I think the role of the national coordinator, as the Minister said, has been really important in that, because he's gone out and met schools. He's a peer. He can show them the kind of benefits of running the programme. He's bringing on schools who will act in a really positive way to show other schools, because that's what we want, is for schools to follow schools on this. We've organised for the first time ever separate training for the special schools in person. I think it's happening tomorrow actually in Athlone, so that special schools are actually coming together and collaborating themselves and looking at best practice and looking at ways to do this in the best way possible. So, you know, there's more work to do, but I think we're trying to put it out there that there's something for everybody.
Say if an organisation or a charity or whatever in an area wants to run it, can they use a school? Is there a school? Is that like a school? Will a school be made available in the area?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If the you know, I mean, obviously we have to talk to the school and we look at individual circumstances. But yeah, we have one area where that is. I think that is going to happen. I don't want to say exactly because but until it's done. But we have certainly one place where that is going to happen. And look, in that case, the collaboration is there with the school, which I think is important. But yeah, there's other ways. There's other ways of doing it. We'll work with each group individually just to look at their individual needs. Some people have premises already or have access to a premises. It doesn't have to be a school if they have somewhere else to do it, but we'll work with them on it. Yeah.
It is an ideal situation where there isn't a premises available, because you do have the school premises, but for a variety of reasons it might not suit or whatever. It will be at the discretion of the Board of Management. But I do think, going back to what we had said earlier, that we'll be able to showcase maybe after this summer a few different models of, we'll say, Frank was just saying, maybe there's one school that would do it if they weren't doing it themselves, you had the outside provider. Maybe there's another that had a premises. In other words, we'd be able to almost have a template for others next year who might like to follow. So this is kind of a learning curve for us as well. It's a new departure, but I think it has the potential to grow itself going forward. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.